and we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Wingecarribee Local Planning Panel. I'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging. I'd also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders attending today's meeting. My name is Michael Manty. I'm the chairperson for this afternoon's meeting of the Wingecarribee Local Planning Panel. The other panel members are Mr. Alf Lester,
Michael, I think you've muted yourself.
I beg your pardon. Where did I start muting from?
You introduced Alf and then you cut out.
Okay, beg your pardon. The other members of the panel are Ms. Linda Kelly. Mr. Lester and Ms. Kelly are expert members of the panel. The fourth member of today's panel is Mr. Dennis McManus, who is a community member on the panel. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence at today's meeting of the Interim Deputy General Manager and the Managers of Development Assessment and Strategic Land Use Planning, as well as Senior Council Officers. Are there any apologies that ought to be recorded in the minutes? No? Now, at this stage, I'd like to call on panel members to declare any interests in any of the 5 items that we've got on today's panel meeting. And if you could unmute yourself and just say what your response is on the record, please. I can see Mr. Lester talking, but I can't hear you, Mr. Lester. You're going to have to unmute yourself. Would anyone else like to jump in and declare any interests?
I have no declarations of interest.
Thank you, Linda. Is Mr. McManus on the line?
Yes, I've just joined now, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm calling for any declarations of interest from panel members.
I have none.
Okay. Mr. Lester?
I have no no conflict of interest.
Thank you. Before I call the first item, I'd just like to explain about the panel's role and the meeting procedures. There are 5 items on today's agenda. The first item is a development application. The panel's role in respect of that matter is to determine the application, either by refusal, approval, or in exceptional circumstances, deferral. The panel will take into account the council officer's report, the submissions received from the public and government agencies, and all relevant legislation and policies. The other 4 items on the panel relate to planning proposals. A planning proposal is an application to change the local environmental plan. The panel's role in respect of the planning proposals is to provide advice to council in respect of whether these proposals should proceed or not. The council does not have a determining role in respect of those matters. The advice the council provides, the advice that the panel provides to the council will be provided to council officers and the administrator will make the final decision as to whether or not those items, those planning proposals should proceed. In terms of procedures, we will hear from the community members registered to speak on each matter. We'll hear in order of those who are opposing the recommendations by the council officers, followed by those who are supporting the recommendations by the council officers on each item. Presentations are usually limited to 3 minutes, but given that we don't have many people listed to speak today, I'm happy to extend that time. The panel members may ask you questions after you have finished your presentation. After the final speaker has presented to the panel, the meeting will be closed to the public and the panel will adjourn in private to discuss our minutes and our determinations on each of those applications and recommendations. Once the panel has decided on each of the matters, the panel will return to public session and the minutes will be recorded on the public record. And I expect that period between closing and opening of the public meeting to be about 1.5 to 2 hours, given today's agenda. Just a couple of small administrative matters. Can all attendees on the line please please switch their telephones and computers to mute until they are invited to speak. And as you would have seen in the disclaimer that was displayed at the beginning of the meeting is being recorded and webcast via council and be webcast via council's website. Moving on to the items now. The first item on today's agenda is a development application for a recreation facility, brackets indoor, Southern Highlands Bridge Club, located at David Woods Playing Fields, Boardman Road, Bowral. The council officer's recommendation is for approval subject to conditions. I have no people registered to speak on my list, either in support or against the council officer's recommendation. So unless anyone brings to my attention now that they're on the line and they wish to address the panel, I'll move to the second item. Okay, so there's no speakers for or against item 5.1 on the agenda. The next item is item 6.1 on the agenda. It is a planning proposal to reclassify land described as lots 11, 12 and 13, DP 1150964, which relates to land located at Sheepwash Road at Glen Quarry. The planning proposal is to reclassify that land from community land to operational land under the Local Government Act. The council officer's recommendation is that the planning proposal proceed to finalisation under section 3.36 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act. I have no people registered to speak for or against the item on my agenda. So again, I'll call for anyone that's might be on the line that wishes to address the panel to speak up now, please. Okay, well, moving on to the next item, which is item 6.2 on the panel's agenda. Item 6.2 is a planning proposal to reclassify land located at Lot 1 DP 1246504, located at 7 to 11 Burgess Street, Bundanoo. The proposal is to reclassify that land from community land to operational land under the Local Government Act. The council officer's recommendation is that the planning proposal be finalised under section 3.36 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act. I have Ms. Anne Rocker listed to speak, I believe, against the recommendation, but Ms. Rocker, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're on the line, can you please tell the panel what your concerns are about that planning proposal?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yes, I'm speaking in favour of the recommendation.
Yes.
And I did make a presentation to the public hearing, which I won't bother to repeat, but I'm supporting the recommendation. I'm representing the Bundanoo Community Association, And we believe that the recommendation provides for consistency of the classification for the entire parcel of council-owned land. It seems pointless having a very small portion of it with a different classification. And it does correct the previous error that was made in the classification when the road was ungazetted a year or two ago. And it also enables the consolidation of the lots on the site. So we are in support of the recommendation to the planning panel this afternoon. I just wanted to make a small correction to comments that are
Yes.
written in the report about the issue of off-site parking. There is actually off-site parking or parking on that site already, and it is used. So there's been a DA approved by council for the men's shed to extend their premises on that land, and as part of the conditions of consent for that, the men's shed is providing 6 parking spaces on the site, and they are being used. So the users of the site are not occupying the street. There's parking on your site that we have a license to use.
Okay.
And any further DAs that would come in from the other organisations there would, of course, all those things would be considered at the time, you know, parking and whatever. So, yeah, so we do support the reclassification. I just wanted to make that clear, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm happy to go into any more detail, but I think you've got most of it in front of you.
Thank you, Anne. Just hold on the line because there might be some questions of panel members.
Yeah, sure.
Any panel members wish to ask Ms. Rocker a question?
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
No. And just a short question. So you're from the Bundanoon Community Association.
Yes. That's
does the Community Association use this, use the adjoining land for any purpose, and what is the purpose?
The land is licensed by council to 3 organisations. So the Bundanoon Community Association, the Bundanoon Men's Shed, and the Bundanoon Highland Gathering that runs Brigadoon. So the Brigadoon Committee has a shed for storage. The men's shed has a large facility there that they use regularly. And the Bundanoon Community Association has been planning to build a shed on the site for a very, very long time. And we're just waiting for this process to be completed so that we can submit a DA for our shed. So
Right. And that shed will be located on this land that is proposed to be reclassified.
No, it won't be. We thought it would be able to be, but the land is not a suitable size, and the setbacks are too great, so we wouldn't be able to put a shed on that land. So council has agreed to extend the licensed area, and that's gone through council. It's all been signed off. So we're going to be hopefully building our shed on the extended land behind 36 and 38 Era Street.
Right. Okay.
And there'll be a DA, obviously, so council will, consider that at the time.
Yes. Okay then. Well, thank you, Ms. Rocker. The panel will take into account your submission as well as the other written submissions received during the public submission of the planning proposal when the panel determines whether or what advice to provide to the council. So thanks very much for sharing your concerns with us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on the panel's agenda is item 6.3. Item 6.3 is a planning proposal to rezone land at 254 Centennial Road, Bowral, which is the Centennial Vineyards, from Zone E3 Environmental Management to Zone SP3 Tourist under the Mingekarabee LEP. The council officer's recommendation is that the planning proposal be finalised under section 3.36 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act. I have no speakers listed on my agenda to address the panel. If there's anyone online who wishes to address the panel, please speak up now. Okay, moving on to the next and last item on the panel's agenda. This is another planning proposal. It's a proposal to amend the provisions of the Wingecarribee Local Environmental Plan 2010 relating to secondary dwellings in rural zones. The council officer's recommendation is that the planning proposal as publicly exhibited be finalised under section 3.36 of the Environmental Plan Assessment Act. Again, I have no members of the public listed to address the panel on that item. If there's anyone online who wishes to address the panel that's not on the list, please let me know now. Okay. What I'll do now is close the public part of this planning panel meeting. And as I said earlier, the panel will now adjourn in closed session to discuss each of the items on the agenda and prepare the minutes of the meeting. And those minutes will record the determination in respect of first item and the advice in respect of the other 4 items. The minutes will be, the written minutes will be published on the council's website on Friday of this week, and the resolutions will be read onto the record this afternoon after the panel has finalised its minutes. So I wish to thank those members of the public that attended the meeting and council officers who have assisted the panel in understanding these items on the panel, on the